alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining in. I'm Aisha, and I welcome you all on behalf of Octara in this 1 hour webinar, which is titled as Win Customers Through Effective Communication. The webinar will be facilitated by our expert, Catherine Bentley. Before I formally introduce her and we begin with the session, I would like to share some housekeeping rules for the Zoom meeting. I would request all the participants to mute yourself and turn off your cameras while the presentation is given. If you have any questions during the session, you can put them in the chat box and we'll take your questions towards the end. This session is also streaming on our Facebook page, which is Team Octara. So if any of your friends or colleagues who have not registered yet and want to join, they can join us from our Facebook page. The session is also being recorded. Can you hear me? The session is also being recorded and will be later available on Octara's YouTube channel. Like I've said, if you have any questions during the session, you can put them in the chat box and we'll take your questions towards the end. Lastly, if you find any technical difficulties while the presentation or while the session is continuing, you can contact my colleague Sarimati, and you can also try log out and log in back. It might resolve your issue. I would also like to take the opportunity and talk about Octaras. Firstly, I would like to talk about our new initiative, which is called TCS Octara WebMall Plus. It's a brainchild of our CEO, Jamil Janjua, who came up with this idea a year back when the first wave of COVID-19 has arrived to Pakistan. His idea was to, taking the pulse of digital transformation, his idea was to facilitate the HR and corporate community in the form of providing one window learning solutions via WhatsApp group. This group provides all e-learning solutions in the form of live and recorded webinars, which are facilitated by international experts and national facilitators. It also provides you with learning material like talks, podcasts. I request the participants to please mute yourselves. Thank you. So this platform is provide you with all sorts of learning solutions, comprising of webinar, talks, podcasts, online training, reports, newsletter, and interesting storytelling session. So if you want to become a part of this group, you can get yourself registered and access to all these learning programs. I will also put the link in the chat box so that you can get access of this new WhatsApp group. Now I would like to share a 2-minute short video message from our CEO, Jamil Janjua, about what we do at Octara. Have a look.
Hi, hello. My name is Jamil Janjua, and I'm the CEO of TCS Octara. Octara is a company that belongs to the TCS group of family, and it has established an enviable reputation as being one of the leading executive training service providers in Pakistan. A large part of our success is attributed to our chairman, Mr. Khalid Wan, whose personal commitment to encourage the development of the people at both TCS and at the Pakistan level. It has been very, very stimulating and very, very inspiring for us. We take great pride in delivering high quality learning experiences which are based on extensive research of training needs, after which programs are created, working with the best possible trainer, the content developed to address the needs, then marketed as a series of leadership acceleration programs, and finally delivered, ensuring all logistics is taken care of to ensure a high quality learning experience. Our team motto at Octara is to help you succeed. Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce our speaker of the day, Catherine Bentley. Catherine is a little bit background of Catherine Bentley. She is originally from UK and based in the UAE since 2004. And since then, she has been providing trainings and training diverse and multiple teams across geographical location, helping them to enhance their communication in customer services and enhance their brand credibility. She works with both group and individuals, helping them to develop their confidence across industries. She's also the director marketing and communication of PowerBased Consulting. She has over 16 years of business management and consulting experience within the financial sector, specifically including Royal and Sun Alliance, MBN in International Bank, and Royal Bank of Scotland. Catherine has done her master's degree in English language from the University of Edinburgh, UK. She has also done her diploma in marketing from Chartered Institute of Marketing, and she's also a qualified TCS facilitator. Apart from her professional life and her work life, Catherine likes to spend her leisure time in running, walking, and skiing. So she is a fitness. She's into fitness, and she also likes to train for give the training classes in her leisure time. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Catherine, and thank you, Catherine, for coming on board. And over to you.
Thank you, Aisha. I'll now try and share my screen with you, John. Okay, can I just check? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, and can everybody?
Yes.
I know there were a few issues with the audio a little earlier. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. So welcome on board, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, and of course, Ramadan Kareem. I really appreciate you joining us in the latter stages of Ramadan, and I know maybe energy levels are waning a little bit, so it's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us. As has already been stated, the title of today's session is Win Customers Through Effective Communication. It's all about winning customers by using effective communication. Just a bit of pictorial evidence and the background which Aisha presented about me when I'm not training, coaching individuals in terms of business skills. I do enjoy training of the physical kind, so running, skiing, walking, and so on. That's a bit of my background. In terms of my professional background, as Aisha said, I'm originally from the UK. My background there was in financial services, very much corporate. So I do have a corporate background, banks and insurance companies. I've been in the UAE for many years now, coming up 17 years. And my focus as I have been has been coaching, working with individuals, mainly in terms of communications. There's been a communication skills thread through all the work I've been doing since I've been in this region. So I'm very, very happy to be here with you today on a topic which I'm very passionate about. In terms of my company, the company I work for is PowerBased Consulting, and we've been working with Octara now for several years. Sadly, the current conditions don't allow us really to travel to Pakistan. We've been a number of times, but we will be back when times improve. I'm sure that we will be back to be working face to face with Octara and their clients in Pakistan. So until then, we work as we're doing today in a virtual way. Okay, in terms of basics, I think really pretty much been covered. If we can please keep yourselves on mute, manage the mobile menace and so on. And please, if we can keep being present, it's only a short session. We're going to try and cover a lot of material in this session. If we could try and keep questions via the chat, as Aisha said, and also at the end there'll be a bit of an open question answer session. There will be a digital certificate of attendance distributed to all attendees after the session. And if anybody actually wants the slides from today, they'll also be available via Octara. So, our roadmap for the next 45 minutes or so is first of all going to be to look at the importance, just how important is communication in business and when working with customers. And then taking a minute or two to consider how are our communication skills right now Where are we right now on the communication skill scale? Couple of minutes to think about what might get in the way of winning customers through effective communication. What could the barriers be? And then I'm going to be introducing you to two particular models or formulae. One is the influence formula. So how the various aspects work together to influence in terms of communication. And then a model in terms of working with customers to win customers, to build trust for new customers, and to retain and engender loyalty. And then a little bit of time at the end to think about your own personal action plans. So that's our overall roadmap for the next few minutes. But to start us off, first fact of the session. It's widely believed that 85% of our success in life is directly linked to our skills in communication. So I just want to pause and think about this for a few seconds. 85% of our success is going to be linked to our skill in communication. So we may have jobs which you might consider to be technical, to be practical, but ultimately our success and our career progression, our success in business, or whatever else we're trying to do in life can be directly linked to our skills in communication. So communication, very, very important for sustainable success. The way that we deal with people, whether it be customers or whether it be our colleagues, people working around us, our associates, our partners, or in our personal lives. Our success is so much linked to our skills in communication. So we've got to think about this, how we invest in developing our communication skills. I want you to just have a think, just reflect for a couple of seconds where you believe you are now on the communication scale. We've got a very, very simple communication scale, quite basic really. I'm thinking about communication along a scale. And at the bottom end of the scale, we have a communication standard level, which we might consider to be a little bit maddening. Yeah, so in communication, not always clear. Yeah, abbreviating things, using words that people perhaps won't understand, rushing to communicate rather than communicating properly. We might consider that to be maddening. A little bit further up the scale, we've got what we term mediocre communication. That's where communication is just about okay. It gets the job done, functional. Yeah, no more, no less, mediocre. But then at the high end of the scale, we have magnificent communication. So magnificent communication where we're using communication to connect with people, to build trust, to build loyalty, and to really, really foster sustainable relationships with customers, with colleagues, with everybody we come into contact with. Magnificent communication. Now, I want you to just think for a few seconds about your communication skills, your communication style, and where it might fit on that scale right now. Being honest, yeah? And I'm going to ask you to take part in our first poll, okay? So I'm going to launch a poll now, which you should see on your screen, okay? And I'd ask you all to just indicate where you think your communication skill is. Is it maddening? Be honest. Is it mediocre? Is it magnificent? And this is, of course, anonymous, so be honest. Give an indication where you think your communication skill is. I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. We're almost there. 73% of us have voted. Just a few seconds for people who haven't yet voted to cast your vote. Where do you think your communication skill is on that scale? Okay, I'm going to end the poll there and I'm going to share the results with you. Okay, so this group then, in this group, we've got 10% of the group, just a couple of us are saying, yeah, my communication is maddening. I'm sure it's not maddening all of the time, but you're recognizing that at times it's towards that end of the scale maddening. We've got 70% of the group, so obviously the vast majority of the group are labeling themselves as mediocre in terms of communication skill. Functional, gets the job done. And just 20%, so 4 of us think it's magnificent. Yeah, so thank you for that. That's a bit of an indication where the group feel they are in terms of communication skill right now. Okay, so let's get rid of the poll. What we can say also is that the past 12 to 15 months have added another dimension in terms of communication, another dimension, and COVID and the changes that it's brought to our working lives and to our personal lives has added another challenge in terms of communication. Would anybody like to share with us, maybe on the chat box, how you think COVID and the new normal has affected the communication challenge? Anybody like to give us their thoughts on that in the chat box, please? How do you think that COVID and the new normal has affected communication? What would you say? Any thoughts? Okay, so ideas coming in. Physical to virtual presence, yes. COVID's added stress and pressure, so communication becomes difficult, absolutely. Direct interaction's been minimized, absolutely. It's become more challenging, yeah. Distancing, yeah. Paradigm shifted, absolutely. On the move to virtual, absolutely, all completely valid, yeah. So we may have considered ourselves to be on the kind of magnificent end of the scale 12 months ago, but we've got another challenge now, another challenge to overcome in terms of communication because of different ways of working and the less direct interaction. So all the more reason why we take time to focus really on our communication skills and how we can continue to improve them. Because as Jim Rohn said, business guru, if you just communicate, you can get by. You can get by. You can get the job done. But if you communicate skillfully, you can work miracles. And interestingly, this group recognized itself to be at that mediocre level, just communicating, we get by. But if we communicate skillfully, if we move more towards the magnificent level, that's where we start to become more successful in terms of building relationships and, of course, winning customers. So that's the challenge for us. I think it's worth just also reflecting on what actually is happening when we're communicating, just pausing to reflect on this. Because we have a communication cycle always. And if we think about where communication starts, the source, the individual, needing to communicate some kind of message. Whether we're aware of it or not, we have to then encode that message in some way, whether it be language, whether it be writing, however we do it. The message has then got to go through a channel, whatever channel we select, whether it be a telephone call, an email, a WhatsApp message, whatever channel we're choosing. At the other side, the receiver has to decode the message to understand it and will then give feedback. And it's a cycle. This is how it goes. And it looks quite simple when we consider communication in this way. It looks quite simple. So what then is stopping us? What's stopping us from being magnificent in communication all the time? Anybody like to share with us, again on the chat box, what you think are your communication barriers? What is stopping you from being magnificent each and every time? Share with us your communication barriers. What would they be? Okay, shyness. Yeah, lack of information, language, absolutely. Yeah, different mindset, language mainly. Yeah, lack of understanding what the response may be. Yeah, all of these things. Selection of words. Yeah, Personal styles, absolutely. Social styles can get in the way. BPA score. Thought clarity, yeah, all of these things. Personal thoughts, yeah, thank you, Syed. Okay, uncertainty, yeah, lack of confidence. Okay, these are generally considered to be the top 5 barriers to communication. Top 5. First one, as you've said there, language issues, yeah. Environments we're working in, depends where you're working, depends who you're dealing with, but often people are having to work and deal in languages other than their first language. It's fact. And it can lead to all kinds of misunderstanding, breakdown, and ultimately lack of relationship building. Got a little video clip to show you here. Hopefully you'll all be able to see this. A little bit extreme, but it shows how the message can completely break down because of language difficulty. Have a look at this. You might recognize this situation.
Hello. Good evening, Mr. Carlo. My name is Kumar Fukurbuti, calling from Emirates Elite BJ International Bank, sir. How are you today?
Yeah, hi. I'm very good, thank you.
Very good to know, sir. Sir, we have a request for new bank card, sir.
Yes, I asked for a card.
Okay. Card is special one-time delivery only. Subcharge of 5.2 interest fixed on your 2.4 and a quarter, which will give it a special like this one perspective. Very good chance and number.
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat?
No problem, sir. I will repeat. Okay, card is special one-time delivery only. Subcharge of 5.2 interest fixed on your 2.4 quarter, which will give you a special discount like Puri Batkin Puri Miss Passion number.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Can you please slow it down or just say to me more slowly?
Special one-time delivery on subcharge of 1.2 is 29 and 2.4 for tendering begin the benefits like
No, I'm sorry, I don't understand nothing. Can you please pass me a supervisor or somebody else, or just somebody can explain it to me? I'm not gonna proceed.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry you're getting mad. I will. No problem, sir. I will pass you my supervisor, sir. Okay, no problem. Just give me a second, okay? Just hold it right there. Hold that beautiful sound of your voice. I will be back to you in 10 minutes, okay? After the customer. Mr. Carlo, good evening. My name is Mohammed from Elite BJ International Bank. How can I help you today, sir?
Yes, hi. I am a question for a new card on the bank account, but just to understand like all these procedures.
So I understand your frustration. It just will take a matter of time. Just hold on a second. I have very important things to do. Habibi, get the grenade. Get the grenade, I swear to God. This PUBG thing is stupid. I swear to God. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Just wait for me, huh? Mr. Carlo, I check on your account on your behalf. You have entitled for 2.3 for interest fix on your annual quota. We should give you extra benefits like discounts, price, beauty market, and hotels and spa. Would like to confirm the card, sir. Very good. Just hold on one more second in line, please. I swear to God, this PUBG is so good. Baby, Hala, get the grenade, can you? Swear to God.
Hello?
Okay, we'll pause it there. Yeah, so a little bit of humour there, and it's quite an extreme example, but there are elements, parts of that video which certainly I receive calls on a frequent basis where the complete lack of clarity in terms of expression, and the call goes nowhere. Somebody's trying to sell me something and I haven't got a clue what they're talking about because of the language, yeah, because of the lack of clarity. So language can be a big issue. We've got to really think about this. Cultural differences, yeah, cultural differences when we're dealing across different countries, or even when we're dealing with different regions in the same country. Cultural differences can cause blockages in terms of openness of communication and lack of understanding. Third one that's highlighted as a key communication block, time pressure. Yeah, time pressure. We're all feeling time pressure. Yeah, and modern day world, working world, we're all time poor. And often we feel that we don't have time, perhaps, to spend on making communication as clear and as effective as it should be. But it gets in the way. And actually what it causes is more time being needed later to clarify things. So time pressure can be a real blockage. Lack of empathy, particularly where we're dealing with customers, in terms of helping them to understand their needs, fulfilling their needs, and also in terms of dealing with unhappy customers, customer complaints. Lack of empathy, a really big block to effective communication. And then, of course, physical barriers. And this one has come more to the fore in times when we're working remotely. Yeah, and we're relying on technology to have meetings and things with people in remote locations, and then the internet goes down or there's a problem, technical problem, physical barriers really become much more of a feature in terms of communication barriers. So they're the top 5. There are others, but ultimately what all of these mean in terms of results of failed communication: inefficiency, wrong outcome. Critically, when we're looking at customer relationships, can lead to conflict and breakdown in relationships where there's misunderstanding. And then, of course, loss of credibility. So one of the first things in considering our communication is to think, which of these aspects are blocking my path to magnificent communication? Is it these? Is it other aspects? What are the barriers? And how do we go about breaking those down? Because if we don't, these are results. Yeah, we're not going to win customers if we've got some of these barriers in the way of great communication. And the other thing before we get into some of the models that I want to share with you is to just stop and think about communication and purpose of communication. A little diagram I want to show you here, which we've got many different layers of purpose of communication. Yeah, communication can be to get or to give information. It can be to persuade somebody of a particular course of action or of a particular principle, facts. It can be to clarify, to ensure understanding. It can be to get some kind of action, reaction, response. But right in the center of all of this, when we're communicating, what we're trying to do is to influence behavior or thinking. And it's this key word here, influence, that we're going to focus on now for really pretty much the rest of the session. We talk about winning customers. How do we win customers? How do we win people? It's by influencing them. So we're going to think quite a lot now about what influence actually means. So let me ask you this question now. Again, if you could give me your thoughts maybe on the chat box. What do you think are the key elements of influencing? If you think about people that you try to influence or people who influence you, what are the key elements of influencing? What would you say that they are? Key elements of influencing. Trust, absolutely, yeah. Trust, openness, yeah. Knowledge and confidence, absolutely, Mawash, yeah. They're doing what they're saying, yes. So they live, breathe, and eat what they're saying, yeah. Understanding need, yes. Empathize, excellent. Appearance, long-term relationship, sharing knowledge, all of these things, yeah. All key to influencing, absolutely, absolutely. String bound, yes. Long-term relationship, understanding of the audience, absolutely. Being strong, yes. Some great ideas there. Okay, I'm going to give you now quite a simple formula to take away. Feel empathy, thank you, Said. Quite a simple formula to take away, something quite easy to remember when we're thinking about our communication and how we make it impactful in order to win customers, yeah? And this is the influence formula. So the influence formula looks like this. Absolutely no idea how I got this animation, but it's there anyway. So we've got C plus T equals I. Now, it's probably not so much of a surprise to learn that the I stands for influence. What do you think that C and T might stand for? I think we've had some of these already, but what would you think? C plus T equals I. What do you think? I've given you I as influence. Okay, so we've got confidence, all right. Clarity, clear and timely. Communication, communication, all right. Any other words? I'm looking for a few other words for C and T. Caring, credibility, trust, yeah. Communication, trust. Compassion, trust. Courtesy, yeah. I think all of these ideas are part of this. They're all part of this, yeah. But specifically in this formula, we say that C is connection, yeah. So to influence, we need first of all to connect with the customer or whoever else we're interacting with. The T, I think everybody pretty much got that one. Connection, and T is trust equals influence. Very, very simple. Connection plus trust equals influence. So let's break these down a little bit further and think how they apply to our communications, yeah? First one, connection. What does connection actually mean? And how can we actually apply this to thinking about our communication skills? And I've got a little model again, very simple, something for you to take away, to remember, to trigger your thoughts when you're thinking about your communication and communication skills. And it's called the heart of connection. Heart of connection. H is for honoring people. Yeah, I'll break down what all of these mean in a little bit more detail shortly, but the H is about honoring people and everything that involves. The E, empathizing. We've had that. A number of you have actually said empathizing. Key part of connection, empathizing, particularly in difficult or challenging communications, empathy. A is being authentic. Yeah, so being authentic and true to your brand and to the brand that you represent in your organization or whatever the situation you're in, being authentic. The R is responding. So responding rather than reacting in communication, key difference. And the T here is transparency, being transparent. So these are the main elements of connection. Main elements of connection. Let's have transparency and see how they might apply to our communications in practice. So honoring people in communication and all dealings. How do we do that? Yeah, it's about displaying respect, listening to people, give their opinions and feelings, even if we don't share them, and often we won't. Yeah, listening, appreciating, welcoming different views, points of view, letting people have their say, and respecting. And it's about really never treating any person in any way less than we would want to be treated. Yeah, and it's thinking about your audience in communication. Really breaking it down and putting yourself in their position, thinking about what kind of questions you've got to ask yourself. What do they need to know? What do they want to know? Yeah, how can I structure my communication appropriately? What's their communication style? And trying to match that. Yeah, if you're working or you're talking to somebody who likes a lot of detail, then you've got to respond that way. You've got to make time to respond that way. If you're talking with somebody who's time poor and wants to rush and be quite quick, you've got to respond that way. Yeah, what's the communication style? Are there any cultural issues? Understanding those and trying to be tolerant and embrace those and work that into the communication. And also, critically, something that many people forget, what could be their emotions? Yeah, and we always say, deal with the emotion first and then deal with the facts later, because you've got more chance of reaching a practical outcome, solution, deal, if you deal with the emotion first and you have that emotional connection. All of these things to really think about in terms of the audience and what kind of language will they understand? Yeah, and how can I match my style appropriately? I've got a small thing to share with you here. This is real. This advertising piece appeared some years ago in London and completely overlooked the language and the audience. Yeah, have a look at this. So this was an advertisement for a training company, and they were trying to connect with adults that can't read. The question is, are you an adult that cannot read? If so, we can help. But of course, absolutely ridiculous. If it's an adult that can't read, they won't be able to read this piece. So the marketing agency who put this together should have been fired. Yeah, because completely missing the point and overlooking the audience. This again is an extreme example, but it's no different to using language, maybe technical language or jargon that a customer or somebody you're dealing with wouldn't understand. It would still miss the mark. It will still lead to a breakdown in understanding. So we really got to think, are we honouring? Are we using the right kind of language, the right kind of communication, the right level of communication? Okay, E, empathising with individuals, yeah? So really sensing what a person is feeling and understanding what they truly need. And understanding your own emotions as well. That's equally important in communication. Sometimes we've got to navigate our emotions. Yeah, if we're dealing, for example, with a customer who's complaining, somebody who's complaining, yeah, and we might feel a little bit alarmed or a little bit upset if there's a level of anger or aggression. We've got to think about our own emotions and how we manage those, and also the emotions of the other party. Understanding, trying to put ourselves in their position. Always say, deal with the emotion first. Then deal with the practical solution or the practical matters second. You've more chance of it succeeding. Thinking about listening, critical, yeah? So Greek philosophers said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. But do we do that? Honestly, do we do that? And do we really listen? Yeah, do we really listen? We might be hearing, but do we really listen? We can look at Covey's 5 levels of listening. Yeah, there are 5 levels of listening. And 1 is ignore, number 2 is pretend listening, 3 is selective listening, 4 is attentive listening, and 5 is empathic listening. What does all that mean? Okay, so number 1, ignoring. I'm sure we don't really do this, yeah? Or not often anyway, where we're not listening at all. Not listening at all. And I'm sure everybody's come across a salesman. It's not very clear, I know this slide, but this salesman or this sales animal, whatever it is trying to sell to another party, and straight away the other party wants to buy. But the salesman is so intent in having his say, getting his message, getting his features about what he wants to sell. He's not even listening to the buyer. Yeah? And by the end of the conversation, the buyer is flat on the floor. It's over, basically. Yeah? Again, an extreme example, but are we sometimes guilty of this, not really listening to the other party? We're just concerned about what we want to say, the message we want to convey, and we're really missing signals, missing emotions, and ultimately missing connecting. Yeah, that's ignoring. Second level is what we call pretend listening. That's where we pretend to be listening to the other party, but we are actually allowing distractions to prevent us from decoding. A little video here, hope you'll find it amusing, on somebody who is very clearly just pretend listening. Have a look.
I just don't know what to do. It's a massive decision. What do you think?
Before I tell you what I think, what do you think? Tell me that one again. Yeah, that actually reminds me of something completely different. Leave that one with me.
That is a nice shirt. Oh, thank you. Yeah. What do you think? Yes. What? What? No. Are you even listening to me? Of course I am. Oh, sorry, I was talking to him. That is a nice shirt. Doomda.
Okay, so you may recognize some bits of that there. I can see some people writing things on the chat. Yeah, you might recognize some bits of your own behavior in some of those, or those of other people that you work with or that you live with. Yeah, so pretend listening. Yeah, we're not really there. We move a little bit further up the scale. Next level of listening, selective listening. I always say that my husband is quite guilty of this a lot of the time, okay? This is paying attention to the speaker as long as they're talking about things that we like or we agree with, or something we're interested in. Yeah, but if they move on to other things, we might slip down into pretend listening or even ignoring them altogether. So selective listening. Yeah, maybe you recognize that in your own behavior at times. I don't know, but it's something to be aware of. Attentive listening. Now we're getting a little closer to being really present and connecting, yeah? This is where we're carefully listening to the other person, but while they're speaking, we're actually deciding whether we agree or disagree and determining whether they're right or wrong. So what we're doing, instead of really paying close attention and being present, we're formulating our response, yeah? So there's an element of distraction there. It could appear on the surface that we're listening, but we're not fully focused, yeah? So all of these 4 levels, we're listening from our own perspective, yeah? And we're most likely to respond from our own experience. We get to level 5, and this is empathic listening. This is where we're truly connecting with people, yeah? This is where we slow down, we're patient, we talk less and listen more, repeating back to ensure that we don't overlook anything. And this is where we're really focused on the speaker, standing in the shoes of the other. So key element here of empathy, key element is listening. Yeah, listening and picking up on all the cues that we can from what the person is saying, what the person is doing, how the person looks, verbal, non-verbal, body language, and so on. Really putting yourself in the place of the other party. There are many barriers to listening. Yeah, many barriers. Yeah, we suffer from bias a lot of the time. We jump to conclusions, distractions, which are going to be there. Language can prevent us from truly listening and connecting. Mood, our mood can affect this, yeah? We're human beings. We've got to be aware of our mood, aware of our emotions and how it can be getting in the way of communication and connection. Insufficient interest. So I have to say at times that happens. We've got to be aware of it though, and how it can get in the way of influencing because we're not connecting. Lack of understanding at times, where people feel they don't understand something, they can switch off. And again, cultural differences can be another blockage here. So it's about really being aware of what's preventing us from listening and being truly empathic. So, acknowledging the speaker always. So that's about honouring and it's about empathising, being present, full attention and being aware of the emotions, being expressed on your own emotions and being aware of all the non-verbal message. They will be there. And using questions to clarify. Yeah, think about that. Think about the questions you're using to clarify. Think about the range of questions that you're asking. Yeah, summarizing, reflecting back to confirm understanding, true connection. Okay, so questioning techniques. I'm sure everybody's aware of this. Yeah, think about using open and closed questioning to develop conversations. Think about probing questioning. Yeah, so where we want more information, asking a little bit more detail on this, really getting a full understanding and building a full picture of customers in whatever situation we're in to form true connection. And often it's about asking the right question at the right time. A little video clip to show you here as to how important that is. Okay, so precise communication at the right time, asking the right question at the right time can save lives, yeah? Well, we're not necessarily talking about saving lives, but it can preserve relationships or develop relationships. So thinking about that, are you using questioning techniques effectively in your communication to form that connection? And then, back slide. Authentic, being authentic, yeah? So being true to your own personal brand or any brand that you represent. That's about aligning what you think, feel, and do. Your values and the values of your organization. Are they apparent? Yeah, are they coming through in your communication? So I'm going to ask you now to take part in our second poll. Okay, so I'm going to launch the poll now and ask you to tell us, do you think that your communication with customers now, currently, reflects your brand and that of your organization? Would you say yes, always, some of the time? Or would you say, I'm not sure about it? Not something I've actually thought about. So just ask you to indicate where you think you are in that. Another few seconds to indicate where you think you are. Ten seconds, guys. Okay, I'm going to end the poll there and share the results with the group. Okay, so 3/4 of us, just under 3/4 of us think that always your communication with customers reflects your brand and that of your organization. I'm very pleased to hear that, yeah? 16% of us think some of the time, okay, maybe other time it doesn't for whatever reason. And then a couple of us think not sure about it. Maybe it's something you've not really thought about before. But we've got to think about this, yeah? Are we aligning everything that we do, our values, what we think, what we feel, yeah? Very important to form that connection. Okay, so back onto our heart model. The R, responding to people, not reacting. Yeah, responding with intent, thinking through the appropriate response. A lot of that can be about navigating our emotions as well. Yeah, navigating our emotions and thinking about what we want the outcome to be. It's about going the extra mile to create magnificent communication and work experiences. Yeah, building long-term relationships, meeting each and every customer's needs and showing that they're valued, even if you don't agree with them, even if you're handling maybe a complaint which you would consider isn't necessarily justified. Yeah, it's about listening, it's about taking the time and empathizing and responding in the appropriate way. And then being transparent, yeah, being open, being transparent. And that, of course, is proved over time, yeah. But where people feel that they are dealing with a party that's transparent, that starts then to lead into the next aspect, which is all about trust. So we said Influence is about connection plus trust. Trust, absolutely critical for all relationships, whether it be in your social lives, personal lives, within your teams, internally, or of course, with customers. Yeah, without trust, we really can't build relationships sustainably. So what would you say are the measures of trust? Anybody like to tell us what you think are the key elements of trust? Key elements of trust. What do you think would be the key ingredients? I'm going to give you a little formula in a second, but what do you think? What would you imagine would go into the formula? How we can measure trust? Communication, credibility, yes, I like that. Honesty, yeah. Character, yeah. Commitment, truth, yes. Time, yeah. History, reliability, yes. Trust people doing what you advise them, yeah. Unconditionality, yes. Honesty, communication, response, yeah. Sharing ideas, yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right, now let me give you what has been widely acknowledged to be the trust formula. Okay, and the trust formula looks like this. It's C plus R plus I over SO. Okay, C plus R plus I over SO. What on earth does this mean? Okay, the C is about credibility. Credibility, so people trusting what you say. Credibility. The R is about reliability. There's a track record. Yeah, you say you do something, you're going to do it. Yeah. The I, now this is probably a word maybe people wouldn't guess in this context, and it's intimacy. That doesn't mean intimacy in any kind of marital sense. What it means is how open you are in terms of communication. That's what this means in this formula. So credibility plus reliability plus intimacy, and then we've got a denominator to set the formula. The denominator is self-orientation. Self-orientation. And this is how we can measure trust. So just to break that down a little bit. So credibility, this is about words, okay? So I can trust what he or she says about, whether it be a product or an element of technology, yeah, a principle, yeah, a durability of a product. I can trust what somebody says about this, yeah. Credibility. Reliability is actions. I can trust him or her to follow up, to respond to me within 2 days, yeah, to get the right outcome for something, yeah, to represent me well, yeah. So actions. And intimacy is more about emotions, yeah. So I feel comfortable discussing this with this individual. The communication style has connected with me, so I feel comfortable discussing this. Trust. So that will lead to openness, and I know openness is one of the words that others used here. Yeah. So credibility, words. I trust what he, she says about this. Yeah. They're an authority. Yeah. Actions. I trust them to do 1, 2, 3 because they've said they would. Emotions. I feel I am able to discuss this. I'm able to open up and share my thoughts about this matter. Whereas self-interest at the bottom, this is about your motives. Yeah. So I can trust that she or he cares about me, not just about themselves and their own situation. Yeah. And this is how we can measure trust. So we're going to think about this when we're communicating. What kind of image are we portraying? Yeah, with the words that we use, with our actions, in terms of our emotional connection. And I noticed that somebody's written on the chat box, importance of emotional intelligence in communication. Absolutely. Emotional intelligence is critical for communication, and we could spend a whole day, we could spend a whole 5 days talking about that, yeah, in itself. But yes, absolutely. Emotions, we've got to consider them in every bit of communication that we do, and the kind of emotion that we're feeling to generate the kind of communication we put across, and also what kind of emotion that's going to trigger from the receiver. And then also what the customer or whoever we're communicating with is going to pick up about our motives, our level of self-interest. And this is how we can measure trust. So you might find it useful, we don't have time in this session, but you might find it useful to take this equation away and think about running people you know through this, yeah, through this equation, and giving them a score, yeah, giving them a score. You know, what score you give them, say, from 1 to 10 in terms of credibility, reliability, intimacy, and then the denominator, the self-interest. And then compare that, somebody that you trust and somebody that maybe you don't trust that well, and see how the score is different, made up of these elements. But all of these things we should really be thinking about and applying to our communication. Okay, now I'm going to move on. We don't actually need to look at the video because we've been through all that. But I think it's summarized in what Zig Ziglar said, so business guru. If people like you, they'll listen to you. They'll listen to you. But if they trust you, they'll do business with you. So we've got to think about this, yeah? How we build our communication, how we invest in our communication in different forms, in different channels, with different people to build that trust. It's a key element. Without trust, long-term business relationships are not sustainable. We've got to think about that. So we say, to communicate effectively, we need to connect, build trust, and be a whole human, and not a brain with a keyboard. Yeah, we know the new normal. We're having to deal with people remotely. You know, we know we've got these challenges, but we've still got to think about how we build these elements, how we connect, how we build trust, despite, you know, the distancing and so on, how we get around it, and how we be this whole human and not the brain with the keyboard. So, I know we're a little short of time now. Key takeaways from today. To remember, 85% of our success is directly linked to communication. Remember that. Yeah. COVID has affected the way that we work and the way that we communicate. Who knows if things will ever go back to where they were? We don't know. We don't know what's around the corner. But we know that we have now certain challenges in the way that we communicate, or certain differences in the way that we communicate. So we've got to build that in to our skills development. Being aware of the barriers to communication is a start point for overcoming them. So it's worth just analysing if communication isn't going well with a particular customer or in a particular situation. Why is that? Where is it breaking down? And have a look at some of these models, formula. You know, which point is it and how can we work on that? So connection plus trust equals influence. Heart of connection, thinking about honouring, empathising, being authentic always. Never losing sight of values, being responsive, and being transparent. Key things in terms of connection. And then the trust equation, yeah. So communication is about working well for those who work at it, yeah. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. You might want to take your own thoughts away in terms of committing to action for maybe some of the things we've discussed, and thinking about maybe some things you want to do less of, some things you're doing fine now and you want to keep doing those, some things maybe you want to start doing after today, yeah? And then maybe some things that you might want to stop doing. It might be you want to stop reacting to customers and think more about pausing and responding in an appropriate way, yeah? You might want to start thinking more about emotions in your communication. I don't know. You'll all have your own thoughts on what we've covered today, but an idea now to think about, okay, how do we put all this into practice? So I think that's probably all I've got for you today, but I think we might have a few minutes for questions. If anybody would like to, I don't know if we've got some questions along the way, team, that we need to answer, or if anybody wants to raise them now.
I think before people are putting their questions in the chat box, can I ask all the participants to turn on their cameras and we can take a group picture, because we are already ahead of time. So, and it's closer to namaz timing, so I don't want to hold people who want to say their prayers.
Okay, I just see something that's coming in. Now, Mahmood is asking the role of emotional intelligence in effective communication. What I would say, Mahmood, is the role of emotional intelligence in effective communication is immense. Yeah, immense. If we overlook emotions in communications, we will fail. We will fail. Yeah, at the very, very most, we might be mediocre. The very most. Yeah, we'll never be magnificent. So the whole area of emotional intelligence is critical to embed that into our communications.
Katin, if you could stop sharing your screen, and I'm requesting all the participants to turn on their cameras and we can take the group picture. Sarim, can you please take a group picture for us?
Yes, sure. Okay, done. Thank you.
Okay, so we are done with the group picture. Katin, you may resume with the questions.
Yes, I answered one there. Have we any questions that have been collected along the way, guys? I can't see anything immediately in terms of questions. There was just one that Mahmood had asked about the role of emotional intelligence, which I'm saying extremely important that we think about that. Okay, if the other person, what if the other person trying or pretending to listen, what should be done? Okay, so the other person is not listening. Okay, I think we've got to stop and think, why is that? Why is that? Yeah, and we started to look at this when we talked about thinking about your audience and thinking about what's of interest to them. What do they need to know? What do they want to know? What kind of language do they understand? You know, maybe what kind of mood they might have, their emotions and so on. So I think we've got to just take a step back rather than be offended why they're not listening. Why could that be? Why could that be? Am I using inappropriate language? Yeah. Is it a bad time? Yeah. Do I need to change my communication style? We've got to start by looking at ourselves first and how we're communicating. Okay. Okay, so somebody's asked about books for better communication. What I will do is I'll give some suggestions. I'll send them to the Octara team and then they can send them out with materials or whatever. I'll let that from the Octara team, yeah. Okay. How can you handle deliberate distortions in communications by anarchists? Oh my goodness. Adil, can you give me an example of what you mean? Deliberate distortions. I'm assuming that you mean by intentional interruptions. Yeah, I think what I would do again is stop and think why this is being done. What is the reason for it? What is the motive for it? Yeah, is my communication misdirected? So in the audience for this communication, are they the wrong people? Or am I communicating in the wrong way? And absolutely, somebody says based on bias. Yeah, often if there's a deliberate kind of attempt to burn a communication, it can be for reasons of somebody's. It comes back to emotion. You know, they're uncomfortable about something themselves, probably not linked to your communication at all. So we're going to look at that. Yeah. All about emotions. Due to time and stress, sometimes it's difficult to remain calm during COVID. Okay. All right, how to remain patient and not change our mood. Okay. Yes. I mean, the reality is there's so much about COVID and the situation we can't do anything about. Yeah. And this is not really about communication. It's about the way that we're thinking. Yeah. It's no good as dwelling on things that we can't change. Yeah, we've got to take the situation we've got, whether it be a working situation, a communication channel that it's the only one that's available to us. we've got to just take that and work with it as best we can. Yeah. Absolutely right that it can be stressful. But I think it's about, recognizing what your emotions are, using optimism. And again, we're getting into emotional intelligence now, but thinking about, is this a permanent situation? Actually, no, I don't think it is. It might be going on a long time, COVID, but I don't think it's permanent. Yeah. Is it pervasive? Well, it's affecting a lot of our lives. Yes, it is. But there are still some things that we can do and we can work around. Yeah. Can I do anything about it? Some things we can. Some things we can. We can break through and look at things in a different way, do things in a different way. And it's about looking at the positive sides, the optimistic sides, and recognizing the challenges won't be forever. They're not forever. The challenges nonetheless, but we've got to look forwards. Yeah. Okay. Communication is just like the nervous system in a body. Okay, that's interesting, Mahmood. Yeah. It can be. The nervous system in the body, we tend to react. Yeah. My suggestion is that we avoid reacting. Yeah. We avoid emotional response. We know emotions are there, the chemicals in the body. We know that, but we work around those. We recognize what they are, and that rather than reacting, yeah, we think, we pause, and we respond with intention, thinking about what we want the outcome to be. What do we want the outcome to be? And then we communicate appropriately. Okay. Tips not to rush answer. Not to be rushed, yeah. Well, we say in emotional intelligence terms, take the 6-second pause. 6 seconds. So if you count to 6, okay, 6 seconds is the time it takes from the emotional, the emotional chemical to subside. Yeah, for 6 seconds, once that chemical is careering through the body, there's not much you can do. In that 6 seconds, you're going to react. Take 6 seconds. After that time, you can regain control over your emotions and therefore your behavior. But it's about just pausing. Yeah, just pausing. Somebody says something to you and you feel an emotional reaction. Can you just give me a second to think about that, please? Just let me consider that. Pause, take control, then respond appropriately. Yeah. Hormonal system. I'm not a doctor. Hormonal system is about moods, is about emotions. Yeah, but I don't think I understand my own hormonal system, so I can't comment on anybody else's. Hormones affect moods, affect emotions. Yeah, understand your emotions and work with your emotions. That's what I would say. Yeah. Best ways to bring your ideas into an audience's mind. It's about connecting. Yeah. Thinking about, before you start to communicate, what do you want them to think, feel, do? What do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to do? Yeah. What interests them? Yeah. What kind of language they're going to appreciate? Yeah. Where they're going to be open, and then structuring your communication appropriately. Put yourself in their position. Yeah. Culturally, linguistically, yeah, lifestyle wise, and then to try and to structure appropriately. Health issues affect our way of communication. Absolutely they do, because health will affect, again, emotion. Yeah, so they will. How to handle silence from the other party. Again, I think we've got to look at why we're getting silence. What is it? Have we failed to connect? I think if we're connecting, truly connecting with another party, there will be some kind of response. Yeah. So we've got to go back and think, okay, why is this not happening? Yeah. Why am I not getting a response? Yeah. In the same way that if I was to ask questions to this group now and I get no response, I think, maybe I didn't phrase that question correctly. Maybe they didn't understand it. Maybe it didn't trigger the right thoughts. I didn't connect with them. Let me rephrase that question. It's the same thing. Yeah. Okay. I realise we're quite a bit over time now. Apologies.
Yeah.
I would just say thank you to everyone. Thank you to Team Octara for supporting through all this and for inviting me. I'm very much looking forward to a time when I can come again to Pakistan and see everybody in person. Let's hope it won't be too long. So in the meantime, everybody take care. Yeah, take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Catherine, for such a wonderful session. I think it was a very useful session, and you have shared the heart model of communication. I think that would be something. It's a key takeaway for all the participants. I have learned a lot from that. Before we come to the conclusion of the session, I would request our CEO Jamil Janjua to say a few words in the end.
There's not much I can add after such an interesting 1 hour of what I would call a very productive morning in terms of getting a solid refresher on communication. And it actually puts a lot of pressure on myself to be able to communicate my thank you in this with whatever I've learned throughout this session. I think there's been a lot of learning for those who have been listening and those who have been taking notes. But in case you have not been taking notes, I think there will be a recording available on the Octara Facebook page and the other social media contacts. A recording would be useful for each one of us to go through it in good time and absorb and try to digest it much more properly, because communication is a very important aspect of our lives, and it has become a greater challenge now with the COVID restricting the communication that actually transpired before COVID, where you were able to see the body language, you were able to feel the other person. In the virtual environment, it becomes very difficult to understand the emotions of the other person, which makes it very difficult to to communicate effectively. So yes, I mean, I think it has been a very good session. I mean, I love the all the formulas, the influence formula, C plus T is equal to influence, the heart model, that was very useful, the trust formula in itself. And, there was a lot of talk about emotional intelligence. And for those, participants who are not aware about Catherine and, her husband, John Bentley's programs are the most effective programs that they have, and we've delivered them in Pakistan. We would want to know from you if there's any interest on emotional intelligence. They are very, in fact, this is their flagship program of the of their organization called Power. So if there's any interest in emotional intelligence, please let us know. But of course, we would also want to know from you all if there's any interest on a virtual program on communication. Till such time, we are not able to get to invite John and Catherine to Pakistan. So thank you once again, Catherine. A very useful morning. Please do convey our regards and loves to John from Octara, as well as from all the participants. And we look forward to hear from you and see you very soon in the future. Thank you all participants. They've been quite a great, diverse organizations that are being represented over here, and the ones that I know of are people from MIDAS, from UPhone, from PTCL, from ICAP, from TCS, from Evo, from Parco. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you for giving us the support and encouragement we need to be doing these programs more often. And thank you, Team Octara. Thank you, Aisha, Zainab, and Sarim for putting all of this together. And thanks again to Catherine. Thanks to all of you participants. And we look forward to see you soon. We have a newsletter that comes out every fortnight, which has a summary of this program, of this webinar. In fact, all the webinars are listed on that newsletter in terms of, giving back the key salient features. And Adil Ahmed, who is also right now, I think, a participant, we must, I on behalf of Octara, thank him for putting it all together in writing so that we have a good documented summary of the program itself, along with the records, of course, the recording, of course. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Enjoy the rest of the day, and in advance, Eid Mubarak from Octara. Okay.
Yeah, and adding to what JJ and JJ have said about our forthcoming programs, I would like to share our upcoming programs which are lined up in May and June. So give me a second. And yes, so these are the programs that are lined up. The first program will start, is on personal branding using LinkedIn. It's a modular program. It's starting off from the May 27th. And every Thursday, there is a 90-minute session on this program. So if you want to get yourself registered, you can contact my colleague. Apart from this, there are other programs on organizational change, and which is led by our organizational change and culture expert, Uzma Etakad. And then we have another program by international expert, Dr. Frank Peter. So there are two programs with him. One is on human resources in the age of digital transformation, and the second one is on digital marketing strategy and tactics. If you are interested in knowing more about these programs, detail and registration, you can visit our website, which is www.octara.com. And you can also directly contact my colleague, Sarimati, for further details and registration. With that, we come to an end of the session. And I would like to thank all the participants, my colleagues, and especially Catherine, who has made herself available and gave us a very wonderful and useful webinar. Thank you all. See you soon in our upcoming programs. Bye-bye.